agenda item 8, and we have Waka Kotahi here, and I would like to invite Steve Mutton, Director, Regional Relationships, to come and address us, please.
Tēnā koutou, and thank you once again for having us along to your committee meeting. It's really great to see you all again. Bridges around the world are often admired for their form, their view, their scale. However, success is measured by the efficiency of the daily operation and how quickly and seamlessly we can cross over it. The Auckland Harbour Bridge spans the Waitemata Harbour and connects people, water, telecommunications, power and gas to the North Shore and to Northland. What people often aren't aware of is the amount of maintenance that is needed to sustain its daily upkeep. So today's update, I want to take you through the work that is required to keep our iconic Auckland Harbour Bridge in top condition. So I'd like to hand over to Paul Geck, who's our Alliance Manager, and Matel Khan, who's our ASL Alliance Asset and Network Manager lead, and they're going to talk through the presentation to give you a bit of an update on the effort and work that's required to keep the bridge operational. Thank you, Paul.
Yes, thanks, Steve, and thank you for letting us come and talking about the pride of the Auckland Harbour Bridge. So next slide, Steve. Okay, so the bridge is actually made up of 10 bridges, 8 lanes. It's 1.6k long. The truss opened in 1959, and the extensions were in 1969, so 10 years later. We've got an estimated replacement value of about 10 billion, and about 180,000 vehicles per weekday travel over the harbour bridge. And as Steve said before, that this bridge carries many lifeline utilities, being fibre optic, gas, electric, and communications across the Auckland Harbour to the North Shore and back. Next slide. So looking at around asset management, so part of that is around our inspections. So we do have a policy and procedure, which is Wakakatai's bridge inspection, S6. And we carry over detailed inspections of the bridge and general inspections every 2 years and principal inspections every 6. We do this in a way that via ropes, and access to the bridge is actually quite difficult in some locations. So we do have a dedicated inspection team that are trained on rope and are IRATA trained, and they're supported by specialist tradespeople that can fabricate, weld, paint, blast, and maintain the bridge as we go. We do use a number of technologies to inspect difficult locations. As you'll see on some of the photos there, we are hanging off ropes and trying to get inside the beams and the girders, and we use such things such as borescopes, ultrasonic thicknesses, and non-destructive testing to work out what's going on with the bridge and finding out the defects, and then working out a plan of what we go forward. Next slide, please, Steve. So in terms of actual maintenance, some of the major stuff that we do, so coatings is a significant ongoing part of the Auckland Harbour Bridge. We have been using the good condition of coatings over the last 5 to 6 years. Previously to that, we've been coating the bridge quite significantly, and the last 5 or 6 years there was a change to spot protection, spot coatings, and dealing with the issues of corrosion around that. What we're going to see going forward from here is actually more of a wide investment targeted for the next NLTP, so the 24 to 27 and thereafter. On the other part is the structural maintenance. So we all know that this bridge has got a lot of steel members, steel fatigues over time. And this bridge has already carried more than its design life of loading over the 64 years that the bridge hasn't been in service. So we've actually seen significant amounts of fatigue cracking around the bridge that we carry out repairs continuously as we find them. And we're working through that as we go. There are also a number of concrete repairs in the piers that we're currently doing with around concrete cancer and the likes. Next slide, Steve. So the box girder surfacing. So this is the surfacing on the additional clip-on lanes on the box extensions. This surfacing provides the main reason for the surfacing is actually to provide additional strength for the steel of the box girder. And you'll see there that we are carrying out maintenance that gets done every other year, and it has been done every other year. And this year we're planning to do southbound lanes, and we close it over Christmas. Traffic runs on the on the other remaining 6 lanes. So as you can see, we scrape off the surface and we take it back to the steel. We fix up any of the defects. We lay a membrane layer. And then what we do is we actually pave a epoxy surfacing, which is lightweight, on the box girder surface. And that's to try and help make sure that the bridge can take the loading that it has going forward. And the surfacing actually gives stiffness to the steel deck. So it's very important that we make sure that the bond between the surfacing and the steel is maintained, and that's what we work on. And we redo the surfacing every couple of years. It's not over the whole bridge because some of it is actually still the original since about 1998. Next slide, Steve, please. So some of the recent major works that has been carried out on the bridge has been the 1999 seismic upgrade with the linkage bolts and cross frames. 2007 was the number of vulnerable members that were strengthened with the additional of double plates and batten plates that you can see in the picture to the right. 2010, there was a strengthening of the box girders, and we all know that that was around the time when trucks were not allowed on the clip-ons or on the box girder extensions. And 2017, further strengthening was completed and upgrading further vulnerable members through the harbour bridge. So we are working through what the next 3 and 10-year plan looks like. And that's what we're working through. So next slide, Steve. So the future major works. The coatings one is a major one for us going forward. As I've explained earlier, we've used the good condition that we've had in the previous years. And now we're looking at having to strip back and recoat the bridge from one side to the other, which is a significant undertaking. And that we'll be working through with Waka Kotahi around how and where we do that, and working with the council around discharge and how we work through that. The other part will be the concrete deck upgrade or replacement and the concrete pier cathodic protection. So a lot of these piers have rust and things that will be prevalent. We're using cathodic protection to actually get our way around that to make sure that it would last as long as we can actually make it to go. You'll also know that the expansion joint and bearing replacement, so we've done a couple of those this year, and that was a Saturday night closure through to Sunday morning. And some more of this work will actually require longer closure times of the harbour bridge. like what we saw with the bearing replacement that we carried out very well and successfully. Next slide, Steve. So this one I'm very proud of the team of how we responded to the freak wind accident gust in September 2020. The bridge was impacted and the centre 4 lanes were closed for a significant amount of time until we got the temporary member in place. And while we got the temporary member in place, working with our professional services and also engineers to get the permanent one in place and to be able to get that done and fixed within, I think it was about a 2.5 to 3 week period, with a lot of people doing around the clock hours, working very hard to make sure that the asset was put back into service as quickly as possible. And that was a massive effort by everyone involved, and was very proud to be involved in that aspect.
Great, thank you, Paul, and I'll hand it back to the chair. Thank you.
Gosh, Paul, you've presented us some really important information, and we've got a number of the members of this committee wanting questions. Could we start with Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've sort of got two parts, but I'll keep it quick. If we keep the maintenance regime going with best practice, how long does the harbour bridge have before we hit potentially safety issues for users? And considering inundation, climate change, and the sort of inability to really know what's going on under the water with the piers, and of course the age of the bridge, I guess that's the first question. And the second question is just around what sort of disruption would the public expect as you work through the maintenance regime, and what other options do we have to get over the Waitemata? Is it simply it will take longer, or would there be a diversion around West Auckland to get to your destination?
That's a very good question. The first part of that is trying to put a timeline on the service life of the bridge, which depends on very many variables, as you'd understand, what shape or form the bridge is used for in the future, how we are actually maintaining it. We are maintaining it to our best of our ability with trying to look at new technologies. Yes, the other part is what defects we do find in the future, and how we actually can refurbish or strengthen those defects will determine what closures are required of the harbour bridge. The largest one that we know of at the moment is around the bearing replacement, which we've been able to do a number of those, which requires about a 12-hour closure. And then we will work from there afterwards. With the bearing replacement, yes, the 2 lanes can be open either side, but with some of the other works, the strengthening works may not be able to have that open, so they'll be needed to go around the Western Ring Route and Upper Harbour.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Wow, what a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. Look, my question is back on slide 1, if I may, and I hope I don't sound too ignorant, but I think the first bullet point was that the bridge is actually 10 bridges. Could you just take me through the 10 bridges that make up the harbour bridge, just for my own education? Thank you.
Yes. So there are a number of areas. So there are concrete viaducts to the north and to the south. There are the main truss bridge, and there's also the box girder clip-ons. So there's 2 box girder clip-ons. There's the main truss bridge and the concrete viaducts, and those are the sort of main elements that make up the harbour bridge.
Great, thanks. That's just a little bit of education for me. Thank you.
Councillor Turner.
No, thank you. Member Brown asked my question. I would be just a little bit more direct about it. How long before she's dead?
I don't have an answer of that, sorry. It does really depend on what shape or form it does take into the future and what level of disruption we're willing to live with to maintain it.
Councillor Darby?
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Paul. Paul, just in your introduction, did you say it had a replacement value of 10 million or 10 billion?
3 billion.
Three. Yeah, that's what was on the slide. Hey, just in terms of, you've sort of looked at the maintenance regime. I understand it's the most maintained section of State Highway by a country mile in Aotearoa. And it does have a long life if you do maintain it. Just in terms of being able to extend the life of the bridge, my understanding too is that is achieved if you lighten the live load on the bridge. The static load stays because that's what you're dealing with on a daily basis, but it's the live load. So with the opening of the, what is it, State Highway 18, isn't it? The new Northern Corridor interchange to 1816, what percentage of heavy vehicles that are contributing or have been contributing to the live load and the degradation of the bridge are now choosing the 1618 route? How much has the live load been reduced in that area? And what is Waka Kotahi's, can you tell me about Waka Kotahi's assumed travel planning with the freight industry to suggest to the freight industry that it takes 1618? Or am I being, is my assumption incorrect that Waka Kotahi does have a travel plan with the freight industry to guide the live load away from the bridge?
There's probably a couple of things there. I don't have the exact details as to what is the current loading in front of me, but what I do know is that the Harbour Bridge does not carry the HPMV vehicles. So all HPMV, which is the high productivity motor vehicle, actually goes around Upper Harbour. 50 max is allowed over the Harbour Bridge, and we do not direct freight to go a specific way apart from what our permitting system tells them that they need to do.
So Steve, is there any travel planning at Waka Kotahi? I know you can't direct, but Auckland Transport is always having discussions with major, traffic generators like, hospitals and, education facilities. Does Waka Kotahi have that relationship with the freight industry saying Northern Corridor Improvements Project is open, 1618 is now a pretty good run, not all the time. Is that in place?
Yes, we have really good relationship with the freight community. We meet with them on a regular basis and have the conversations around network performance to make sure we, have reliable and resilient and efficient freight routes. There's no need for us to dictate around the freight corridors at the moment over the Harbour Bridge. We do monitor the heavy vehicle volumes and it's within our loading requirements. Paul's alluded that at some time that might change as the freight percentages increase compared to normal vehicles, but that's the way that we'll operate the network in the future. You will have seen over the last couple of years we've had some VMS signs up giving the State Highway 1816 State Highway 1 times, and that's a way to give people choice about which way they'd like to go through the network. So, we do know that the freight appreciates that information as well. But we definitely have that relationship, but there's no need to dictate the routes at the moment.
Okay, just one last one, if I may, Chair. In your view, back to you again, Steve, do you think the Auckland Harbour Bridge is being used efficiently? Like, do you think there's something that Waka Kotahi can do? And I'm not referring to liberate the lane here, okay? I'm actually referring to are the greatest number of people being conveyed across the Auckland Harbour Bridge in the least number of vehicles? And I'm probably coming back to the light vehicle fleet here, because there's one of the things I've been talking to Waka Kotahi yourself over the years is there's been no willingness of Waka Kotahi to trial a bus priority into, say, T3 lane. And we do have there's some real issues getting out of the city centre in the PM peak if you're on a bus going northbound. Is it Wakakatai's view that the bridge is being used efficiently and it doesn't need to do anything else to incentivise a more efficient use of the bridge?
Yes, Councillor, we can always do better. It's about working together with Auckland Transport to make sure we optimise the network to get the best use out of it. And we do have a network optimisation team that does review that. Yeah, I'm aware of the questions you've asked before, and I think we need to test that and challenge that on a regular basis to make sure we're doing everything possible to maximise the efficiency and productivity of the bridge. There are other points on the network which are much more constrained than the harbour bridge itself, but it's about working together with Auckland Transport and ourselves to make sure we maximise the efficiency of the network. And that's a part of Auckland Transportation Operations Centre as well that has that function.
So it'll be an ongoing issue for consideration. Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. And thanks to the team. Thanks, Steve, for a lot of questions answered on this over the time, including a tour through it. If people get a chance to do that, it's pretty amazing. The questions I have is how do we get this information out there and to the new government around, because a lot of the conversations I've heard over the last decade at least, but it's been far longer than that, is what we'd like to do over the harbour or when we'd like to do it. But actually, I haven't really heard a nailed down kind of no-go situation of when we need to do something, whether that is a busway, a replacement bridge, we've got to close it to 4 lanes to rip off the platforms to replace them. I'm still sort of, there doesn't seem to be a definitive when we need something done, rather than it's always seems to be, let's try and do everything, so then it's far too expensive, so nothing happens. How do we get the clear evidence that, at some point this bridge needs to be replaced and these are the 5 steps to get there?
So thank you, Councillor, for your question. I think that's a topic for the next topic around the Waitemata Harbour Connections Project, who are doing a lot of work around what does the future look like, what is the staging needed to meet the objectives and the outcomes of that particular project.
Okay, and just, okay, so do you have, for this committee today, an understanding of when the next major, are we talking 5, 10, 20 years that you would have to see a significant closure due to maintenance or renewal? Not just the summer asphalt kind of repair.
Yeah, I think Paul alluded to that earlier. We're looking at the interventions that we need to make on the bridge to make sure that it lasts for the needs of the city. I think there is going to be work that is required over time, which will need longer closures that we've seen in the past, but it's certainly something that we're engaged with the community, we're engaged with Auckland Council and Auckland Transport about how and when we do that.
And very last question, Chair. When we close it for the wind now, and understandably we're more conservative on that due to the girder breakage that 2 years ago now, was it? When was it? Oh gosh, the last 4 years seem one big disaster, I guess. So how have you figured out a way to sort of make it less on and off? Is there a way to go, look, Auckland today, between these times, please start using state highway? Or is the easiest approach you've found to go, winds dropped, everyone open, no, the next half an hour? It does, I think, for me, on the shore, at least, seeing the lack of certainty in those times means that it kind of creates its own chaos, but maybe you have better data that shows actually turning it on and off is the best way to do it.
So, Steve, can you talk to this issue of clarity and certainty?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Councillor, and it certainly is a challenge during those severe weather events. So we work really closely with Met Service to make sure that we have forecasts on the weather events that are coming through. This is controlled out of our Auckland Transport Transportation Operations Centre, where they're monitoring real-time the changing wind conditions, and they will make the call at the time based on the wind thresholds that have been met. So I guess the question is, do you tell everyone to go an alternate route or to work at home or to not travel when, 90% of the day the wind might be below those thresholds? Or do we carry on with the operations where we have at the moment, where we monitor it real time and we have to make the call at the time when the wind threshold's met? So it's a very forever changing time and environment, but they are reviewing it real time and they're making the calls real time. The important thing is that we can get the bridge open as quickly as possible. I've personally been caught in it, but I've found too that you're only sitting there for like 5-10 minutes and the traffic gets moving again. So that is much better than diverting all traffic via State Highway 18 or other routes.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
First of all, excellent presentation on the maintenance. I really enjoyed that. Thanks, guys. With regard to the failure that occurred that you were proud to have repaired, and good on you for that, that was an empty truck blown into the into that thing, and so we need to have some way of when the wind comes, there are certain vehicles which are more dangerous, and it's empty trucks, not full ones, and so, and that one, of course, was only there because it was taking an empty container back to the port, which I hope to be able to get out of the road anyhow at some stage, but that's another question. So, as a two-stage to wind days, we should warning people empty trucks, or even just trucks, but empty trucks and empty containers should be kept off the bridge above, say, 20 or 40 k's of wind or something like that. That's kind of one thing I'm thinking. Now, the other part is I'm moving the government, edging ever so slightly, but speeding up, I hope, towards congestion charging, time of use charging, rather than. And that in itself is a tool which will be available to extend the life and use of the bridge as well. And I think we had, in the time of use charging, I'm hoping that it's a little bit more intelligent than what I've heard out of the Wellington lawyers, but I'm trying to educate them, that there'll be significantly different regimes for vehicles of certain types. And trucks, for instance, we've already got time of use charging in Auckland that people haven't noticed, is that the port is now introducing additional charges for trucks to be serviced from the port during daylight hours or during hours of peak traffic. And I'm going to push them to make that even harder so we get the trucks moving at night, more and more at night. And we might have to push the prices a bit to get the guys to open their warehouses at night, but that's a plan to use to regulate the traffic. The bridge is there all day, is 24 hours, but it's not jammed up 24 hours. So are you looking forward to having that as part of the tool for extending life, trying to change the load behaviour, heavy trucks at certain times and no light trucks and heavy winds? How do you respond to those things? Because that's just me looking at what happens and saying, what can we learn? How can we do it?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That was very good points. And this is about New Zealand Transport Agency, Auckland Transport, Auckland Council working together to make sure that we use all the levers and tools we have in place to optimise the network and make better use of the asset that we have. And I think it's not just one thing, but many things that will come together that will enable us to achieve that. And the closer we work together, the better outcomes there will be for our communities.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, we want to work a bit closer than we did on the next thing, on the thing that the Waitemata Harbour Crossing study, which I'm not taking the blame for it being such a dud.
We're not dealing with that agenda item at the moment. Steve, it's been really good to have you here today. You've come primarily to talk about the specific focuses on bridge maintenance, and I think the knowledge that Paul has imparted is incredible. But there are other matters happening within Waka Kotahi. Are there any other issues that you choose to bring to our attention?
There is a lot happening at New Zealand Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi, and we're carrying on with all the good work with our projects that you currently see around the city and the region. and now we're just waiting for the new government to perform to give us that strong guidance and clarity around the government policy statement, which we expect to come out early next year for people to view and comment on. So that will give us our certainty for our investment profiles going forward.
Well, we thank you, and I would like to move a vote of thanks. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. The contrary say no. That is carried. I'm required now to move in order of precedence, in that it's up on screen. We would hear now from Te Whata Ora